Thank you for being here.
Hey there, this is right next to you.
What?
You love good?
Did you go to Rick's? Did you go to Rick's?
I little one.
I had my brother. So.
Oh, it's right.
Yeah, fish. Oh, okay.
So you got the one
So you know what the park is? The Democratic Party.
Yes.
So towards the government mansion,
Yeah.
it's in that building that looks like an admin building. But you just go inside of it and you go a cafe and like no, it's
No,
really
it's on
tricky.
the other
Yeah,
side.
yeah, it's really tricky. Next time.
Next time.
Yeah.
I will. I need to find it because
Yeah, you have to do the witness.
studying that now.
It's just easier stuff before you go. I shouldn't laugh. Offices, purpose and development.
I don't know. I don't Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Hello, how are you? Hey, I'm good, how are you? Long day.
Whatever.
Showed up.
It's not gonna matter as much. So whatever. So I think half my friends, so you know, so I met my friends, I don't care. Yeah.
Well, they don't. Well, they don't have
Can we make this happen?
My son, sometimes I forget. Sometimes you have. Absolutely. You got some just. It's a big.
Play them on game. No, this is, no, my stuff is just here, but it's not taken. Yeah.
I'll be careful.
No, you're fine.
All right, the meeting's in order.
Oh, okay. That was perfect.
Please call the roll.
Senators Kennedy?
Here.
Walsh?
Here.
Shute? Here. Rolliver?
Here. As a quorum, I guess we can start the hearing. First bill up is, or the only bill up is Senate Bill 653, the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act. I'll be presenting that, Senator Walsh.
Madam Senator?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Joe Kevney, representing the 4th Senatorial District, presenting.
That's all right, Madam Senator. Very good.
Presenting Senate Bill 653, the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act. This act prohibits discrimination based on a person's sexual orientation or general identity. Discrimination includes unlawful housing practices, denial of loans or other financial assistance, denial of membership in organizations relating to selling or renting dwellings, unlawful employment practices, and denial of the right to use public accommodations. Define sexual orientation as male or female, heterosexuality, homosexuality, or bisexuality by inclination, practice, identity, or expression. Defines gender identity as gender related to identity, appearance, or mannerisms, or other gender-related characteristics of an individual with or without regard to the individual's design, sex, or birth. This bill's been filed every year since 2007. I believe the overall atmosphere regarding this bill nationwide, I believe has allowed us to get to a point where Missouri can take a step forward and accept this. In my own mind, I don't know why we would allow discrimination at all for anything. This does not create additional class of people. It just extends provisions that are already in statute to this class of people. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the sponsor? Do you have any witnesses?
I would hope to have a lot of them.
I have your note here, Senator, as the chairman, and we ask that everybody keep their testimony to 3 minutes and to remember to fill out a testimony sheet, witness sheet. Do you want to proceed?
Are you ready for us?
We're ready for you. Come on ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Bratcher, and I'm an attorney in Kansas City. And I'm here along with another attorney and my client, James Pittman. I represent Mr. Pittman, and we filed a discrimination case because Mr. Pittman was discriminated against in his employment because he's gay. And we went to the Court of Appeals and and I argued that the sexual orientation is part of sex discrimination and is prohibited by the Missouri Human Rights Act as it stands now. The Court of Appeals, there were 3 members who listened to the argument. There was a decision 2-1 with a dissent, and the court found that sex means gender and sexual orientation is not encompassed in the Missouri Human Rights Act. Yesterday, we appealed that to the Supreme Court. We tried to get the Supreme Court to take that, and yesterday they decided not to take that, to take the issue. So I believe that this bill is extremely important. It's only fair. It doesn't affect other people's rights in any way that I can see. And unfortunately, today in Missouri, people are being discriminated against because of their sexual orientation, and with impunity. There's nothing that can be done. There are ways that people try to carve out exceptions, and most of the large cities, including Kansas City and St. Louis, have ordinances. Columbia, I'm not sure about Jefferson City, have ordinances prohibiting LGBT discrimination, but the problem is these are ordinances, and if someone is found to have violated the ordinance, it's a $500 fine and a misdemeanor. And that really does not address the issue at all. I think, especially in light of the recent Supreme Court decision stating that marriage that people are constitutionally entitled to marry who they want, but the way the law is in Missouri and all but 22 states, someone can get married to someone of the same sex and then be kicked out of their house and be fired because they married someone of the same sex. And I think that it's time, and I think the country's ready to add this to the Missouri Human Rights Act, which has always been one of the laws that has been a shining representative law for all of the states. And I think Missouri is ready for this, and I'm proud to be a Missourian, and I wish the law would reflect what society feels about LGBT rights.
Is there any questions for the witness? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next witness in favor of Senate Bill 653.
Good afternoon, my name is Madeline Johnson. I'm a manufacturer and attorney in Kansas City. A large portion of, in fact, almost 50% of my clients are from the LGBT community. And I currently pursuing a number of discrimination cases on behalf of transgender individuals who are discriminated against in employment. Well, I believe, and my partners believe, that the protected class of sex under the MHRA already does naturally and by logic extend its protections to sexual orientation and gender identity. There are the opponents in these cases are choosing to try and limit the language as it is to say that sex only means a birth sex of a person, and that it does not extend to sexual orientation as well, because they want to say that is a choice. While that is certainly a challenge we're currently facing in the court system, the clarification of this bill that it would provide would just make it clear to employers who want to discriminate that this is impermissible conduct, that persons who are LGBT members of society are just, are entitled to the same protections as anyone else, and it just does not make any sense to limit the word sex, or attempt to limit the word sex to mean specifically a small set of physical traits that belong to an individual. Well, like I said, I believe that the state of the law is such that we are moving towards a definition of sex that includes both sexual orientation and gender identity. I think this bill would help clarify a lot for the state of Missouri and just send a message to everyone that discrimination is inappropriate and unacceptable.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Johnson? Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm James Pittman, and from Kansas City. I was discriminated at my employment. Lynn is my attorney, and I pursued a lawsuit against him. I worked for this company for 8 years, full-time, received raises and increases every year for my job performance. Never in those 8 years did they have any meetings with me about my job performance. But within 3 weeks of having a young man move into my home, I was dismissed. And I think this should pass to protect the right of gay and lesbian employees. Because I just think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. This is a very difficult subject for you, I'm sure. Does anyone have any questions for the witness?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Senator Kennedy, for bringing this legislation forward. My name is Dwayne Simpson, and I lead state government affairs for Monsanto Company out of St. Louis, and I'm here to encourage you to pass this legislation. At Monsanto, we recognize that diversity and inclusion is a program that companies do, but it's a way to do business. In order for us to remain competitive in the workplace, we have to create an environment where all of our employees can be authentic to who they are, regardless of who they are as individuals. And this focus has allowed us to compete worldwide for talent. We have to recruit people from California, from the East Coast to come to Missouri. And we routinely hear when we talk to these individuals that while Monsanto has fantastic policies on LGBT equality, that they're concerned about living in this community because of things like what we just heard. And if you have a married couple that you're trying to recruit one of those members of that couple to come to St. Louis to work for us, they're concerned about their trailing spouse, about whether or not they will be able to find employment. And if they do find employment, whether or not they'll be discriminated, whether or not they'll be able to find housing, or whether or not they'll be discriminated against. It's very difficult for us. It's a challenge that as a company and frankly as a business community that I believe that we need to overcome. Yeah, I'm actually encouraged today looking around this committee room because the first time I testified to this legislation, there were about 4 of us, and we were around a small conference table in the back of the Senate gallery. And this is certainly encouraging to see the amount of support that's here. We don't believe it's good enough just to have good policies. We think that every one of our employees, every one of our customers, every one of our stakeholders has the right to be able to live their life without being discriminated against. I encourage you to pass this legislation.
Are there any questions for Mr. Simpson? Thank you for your testimony. Anybody else in favor of Senate Bill 653?
A lot of people.
Hello, committee. Mayor Tiffany, thank you so much for having us here. My name is Steph Perkins. I'm the interim executive director of PROMO, which is a statewide LGBT organization here in Missouri. I want to quickly talk to you a little bit both professionally and personally about why I feel this is an important and actually vital bill. You'll hear a lot of people talk about what MONA does, so I won't overview that, but I do want to talk a little bit about why it's so important. The Missouri Foundation for Health did a study in 2013 that showed that 1 out of 7 Missourians, LGBT Missourians, has faced an adverse job reaction simply because they're gay or transgender. And so we know, based on this study, but also based on calls that we receive at our office across the state, that people face discrimination in employment and housing and public accommodations. The Williams Institute also did a report, and I won't throw a lot of numbers at you, but I think it's important to say that this will affect over 160,000 Missourians. That's their estimate of how many LGBT people there are in the state. They also make it clear that that's probably a conservative estimate, but that all of these folks are regularly at risk of discrimination in their jobs and in their homes and while they're receiving public services. And I will also tell you that even if someone has not yet faced discrimination, it is always in the back of our minds that this is a possibility and a probability, and no one is immune to it, no matter where you work. Personally, I'm married, and my wife has personally faced discrimination at a company that had a good policy, but the company wasn't very aware of their own policies, but they were very aware of what the state law said. And so they, like I said, even someone who works for an LGBT organization, married to someone who works there, they have absolutely faced discrimination. I brought for you, and I'll leave these with Senator Keaveney, I brought for you a list of companies, letters of support from corporations and large companies across the state. We have almost 1,200 companies of all sizes that have signed on in support of the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act. But I will leave with you letters from companies like Monsanto, but also companies like Pfizer, H&R Block, law firms across the state, candy companies across the state, all sorts of different kinds of businesses that believe that their employees, spouses, and partners deserve the right to be hardworking employees and provide for their families. We talk a lot about sexual orientation because many of us have a framework for a gay person. We may have a gay person who's in our family or who is a friend or a colleague. Not very many of us may have a transgender person who is close to them. So a lot of us don't have a framework for who trans people are in the state. Trans people are also at an increased risk of discrimination. I recently began a public transition. So I'm transitioning from female to male. And I will tell you that it is a very different experience from talking to employers as a gay person versus as a trans person. And trans people are at every level of our workforce. And it's very likely that you do know a trans person, you just don't know that they have transitioned or that they are transitioning. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. I'm happy to answer any questions about some of the opposition arguments you may have heard at any time. Thank you so much for having me.
Any questions? Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your testimony.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee, my name is Leanne Shilton. I represent BJC Healthcare. I think probably other than the state largest employer in the state. And certainly this is an issue that my colleague Dwayne Simpson eloquently spoke of, so I'm not going to repeat what he said. This has been a long struggle. It's really important that Missouri join the other states in passing it, and Tucson has been particularly supportive of it. So I encourage you to once again support this legislation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Is there any questions from the staff? Thank you.
Hello, for the record, Sarah Rossi, Director of Advocacy and Policy with the ACLU of Missouri. Generally, my points about the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act are based in the Constitution, but I would like to point out just for fun that states that are unfriendly for LGBT people and are publicly unfriendly for LGBT people really are doing harm to their economies. I'm sure some of you saw the news bit that came out a few days ago that Indiana actually lost $60 million in revenue when they were trying to proactively discriminate against LGBT people. So creating a positive environment, creating a welcoming environment for LGBT people would actually be a boon to the state of Missouri, as a gentleman from Monsanto and Steph from Provo just said. As far as the Constitution goes, I think we're in a very interesting point in constitutional jurisprudence when it comes to non-discrimination of LGBT people. Obviously, the mayor's decision was huge. It set a great precedent for what LGBT people in America deserve, and that's equal treatment and fair treatment under the law. Where we see ourselves now with non-discrimination, there have been decision after decision that non-discrimination acts like the one before you do not violate the rights of non-LGBT people in the states in which they've passed. There have been arguments that it's a violation of people's First Amendment rights, that it's a violation of their religious freedom, that it's a violation of all these individual rights they hold under the Constitution to be fair to LGBT people, that somehow impacts their constitutional rights. And court after court has decided that that is untrue. There was actually a huge decision, actually a case the ACLU participated in New York State just last week or the week before, where the highest court in that state found for a plaintiff who wanted to access a wedding venue with her wife. The wedding venue, after finding out that it was a same-sex marriage, told them they could not have their wedding there. The couple made a complaint to the Human Rights Commission in New York, and it went all the way through the court system, and the court said again, non-discrimination acts like this do not violate business owners' constitutional rights just because they have to treat LGBT people fairly. And that's where the jurisprudence is leading. And I venture to say, because I'm a positive person, that it's not just going to end with states who have non-discrimination acts. It's going to keep going until, eventually the highest court in the nation is going to have to decide that LGBT people deserve to be treated equally under the law, just like everybody else. But until that happens, states need to be proactive about protecting the LGBT people that already live here and the LGBT people who might want to move here and work here and be a part of the community. So I ask you that you pass it. I know I've spoken to all of you individually about this already, so you know my position, but I'm thrilled to testify in support. And as an LGBT person myself, it'd be nice to know that I can walk in any place I want to stay without getting taped out. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you so much. Hello, Mr. Pages.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Alan Pages on behalf of Missouri NEA. We'd also like to go on record in support of the bill. This bill is on the right side of history. This is simply part of the progress of America. Our members strongly believe that everybody, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, and all other factors, should live a life free from harassment, discrimination, and abuse. We mean that for our students, every student in the state. We mean that for our employees in life, and we mean it for every Missourian in life. That's why we strongly support this bill. We think this year is the time to pass it. I urge the committee to move forward and be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? I have one. Your school districts that your teachers work in, do many of them already have policies in place, like the ordinances? There's several.
There are a number of districts that do have policies like that,
Okay, thank you.
as it relates to school matters.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Senator. Committee members, I'm Nancy Gibbs. I here before you today on behalf of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. Much like what Mr. Simpson already articulated, our members think this is critical in regards to employee recruitment and retention. Many of them already have policies internally, and we'd like to see this expanded to others.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you for your testimony.
And Wayne Lee, I'm a disability advocate, and when I hear this being discussed, it immediately sets off lights in my mind about things that have disturbed me in the past. Because having a disability, discrimination has occurred for those of us with disabilities. Nobody should be discriminated for any reason whatsoever. Sexual orientation is irrelevant. Discrimination should not occur. I've heard that already, I know. I have here also some testimony that was given to me by Rachel Greathouse. She's the intern, the legislative intern for Empower Missouri that Jeanette Oxford is the executive director of. And Jeanette just wrote, Empower Missouri Human Rights Task Force and Board of Directors have passed policies against discrimination toward lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender persons and for their full equality. We thank Senator Keaveney for sponsoring this legislation and urge the committee to vote do pass. Well, I'm with her all the way. I agree 100%.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Mr. Lee? Thank you for your testimony.
My name is Steve Urey, and I'm from Joplin, Missouri.
Excuse me a minute. Senator, your telephone is recording everything you say. I'm sorry. Please continue.
My name is Steve Urey. I'm from Joplin, Missouri, and I'm here to speak in favor of the bill. I think that the Senate needs to see people with faces to the problem. I worked at Union Hospital starting in October of 1999. My last position there was a nurse educator, at which time it was my responsibility to teach the nurse tech program. This was based on Missouri's Certified Nursing Assistant program, as well as the instructor's manual by the state of Missouri. The program was based on the rules from the Department of Health and Senior Services, the Missouri CNA textbook, and Missouri statute. I was also given a CNA textbook to use in addition to the Missouri manual. I computerized all of the program, and the state reviewed it, and we received accolades and approval for using this program, including the tests that I had computerized. During my employment, all my evaluations were above expectations, with a notable improvement that I needed to be more tactful, which is true. In July of 2005, I was told that Human Resources had some questions about the test I was using and wanted to see my resource materials. These are materials that they themselves provided. A meeting was scheduled the day before I went on vacation. The directors from all the nursing departments were present, the head of the Human Resource Department, my own director, and her assistant. At the meeting, the Human Resource Director walked in and laid both textbooks, still in their original plastic wrapping, on the table. They had not even been opened or the material reviewed that they were questioning. I was then asked why sex was brought up on the test, why that was appropriate, and that it was total embarrassment to everybody in the room. Part of the statute and text covered the fact that CNAs needed to know that residents in skilled nursing facilities, as the hospital had, and all freestanding ones, that the residents have the right to have consensual sex, even if the facility has to provide a special room for that. The director of the medical surgical unit, a registered nurse, stated that she had taken the test online and failed it. So how could I justify the test? A registered nurse failing a certified nursing assistant exam. I didn't answer that. After the meeting, I asked my director if she wanted my resignation. She said no. By the time you get back, all this will have blown over. I'm returning from vacation on August 8th, 2005. I walked into the education building to find the locks on all the doors being changed and a security guard on my office. I went to my portion that day of teaching orientation and was met by my director, who took me to the Human Resources Department and told me that I was being terminated. The first line on the form read, "For bringing homosexuality into the workplace." This was based on the test questions, on the fact that a piece of equipment that we used to scan patients with was being actually used on volunteers to teach the process, even though that is also how the company that brought it into the hospital taught the nurses by having them practice on each other, and by the fact that 2 female students reported me for being too long and alone in a room with a male student. I wrote that I disagreed with the termination, told my director that she had known for over a year how the bladder scanner was being taught, and there was no response. I was not allowed to return to my office, even to get my car keys. And I was called 2 weeks later to get my things from human resources. The hospital then reported me to the Department of Professional Regulations. They came back with the fact that there was no justification for the action taken and no justification to take any action against my license. I immediately applied for employment at a local health rehab facility, telling them exactly what had happened. The administrator said that is exactly part of what we need our CNA students to be taught. I've experienced other discrimination in Missouri. I found my car urinated on. I was told not to be upset, that the employees just didn't understand my lifestyle. Literally, pictures were drawn in the bathroom wall of our lobby where I worked, depicting a sex act, and my name was written above one of the characters. The administration would not investigate these issues, and after facing continued harassment, I resigned that position. I retired to my part-time position as pastor of a church open to all people, regardless of sexual orientation and gender identity. It remains important to me that this type of behavior is addressed, and I will continue to work to see that it is stopped. If we have to come to this chamber for the next 10 years, it is time for this to happen. I continue to work with the community in Greater Joplin to see that people have protection, or at least have a support group when these issues arise before them. Our future generations of students, young people, and mature adults need the freedoms that we deserve. We are not asking for anything special, but the freedoms everyone else has. Not one more life needs to be wasted or lost if your jobs are done and done right. This Senate bill needs to get to the Senate, and it needs to get passed. I will continue to work in Southwest Missouri where we continue an ongoing lack of representation by our local, state, and federal elected officials. Respectfully, the time is now, and it's time to do the right thing. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Thank you. Are there any, oh, hello, Ms. Albers.
My name is Ellen Alper. I'm the Executive Director of the National Council of Jewish Women. I'll make it short and sweet. We would just like to go on record as being in favor of this legislation. We think it's long overdue, and we thank Senator Kevin for introducing it.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Is there anybody else to testify in support?
Hi, good morning, afternoon. Thank you to the committee. I'm Austin Walker, Manager of Federal Relations with St. Louis Regional Chamber, which serves as the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Organization for the St. Louis metropolitan area. We represent some 1,000 member companies in Missouri and Illinois. Our chamber is committed to helping our region attract and retain a highly skilled and diverse workforce and fostering an inclusive business community. We also support policies that will strengthen the region's business climate by ensuring that the rights and concerns of employers and employees are addressed. Therefore, the Chamber supports adding sexual orientation and gender identity to the list of protected classes in Missouri law in conjunction with important employment law reforms to achieve fairness and balance that better protects both employees and employers. Our position is virtually unchanged from last year. As the committee is aware, the economy of the United States is driven by talent. We view the addition of these two protected classes under Senate Bill 653 as a pro-business measure, designed to ensure that Missouri remains competitive in attracting the best and the brightest employees who will stay and work in our state for the long term. Our employers, both large and small, already recognize the value of inclusiveness. Over 94% of Fortune 500 companies have these protections already, including Monsanto, Sprint, Pinnacle, BJC, Brian Cave, Express Scripts, Polsinelli, Thompson Coburn, among others. Our members, St. Louis employers, understand the value these protections bring. In an age when people, resources, and information are highly mobile, Missouri recognizes the need to be highly competitive to encourage growth, innovation, entrepreneurship, and investment. We must attract and retain the best talent and ensure that they experience a welcoming and productive work environment. We believe Senate Bill 653 will make us more competitive in attracting this talent, and again ask the committee to pass this bill without delay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Any questions? Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My question is this: you said that the St. Louis Regional Chamber represents about 1,000 companies. When you take a position like this, what is that process? How many companies have to agree with that position?
There's not a certain number of companies that have to agree. It's not, taken to a specific vote. We have a policy council and mechanisms in place to ensure that we're representative of our members. But a lot of our members do support this. Some are with us today and have buy-in on all of our policies.
And in addition to some of the big companies that you mentioned, there are smaller companies in the St. Louis region that are part of the chamber.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. We represent many sizes of companies in the St. Louis region, and many of those are also for this type of legislation.
So the message you're bringing is from a variety of companies in terms of what they do and their sizes, their numbers of employees, et cetera.
Absolutely. It's a broad community of leaders, and this is something that's important to the region for talent and attracting the best and the brightest.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Senators, and thank you so much, Senator Kevin, for your leadership on this issue. My name is Andrew Shaughnessy, and I work alongside Steph Perkins at Promo as the Manager of Public Policy. I'm here to testify in support of SB 653 for the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act, which would add sexual orientation and gender identity to the existing human rights statute of the state. In considering this measure, you are taking a step which could have a lasting impact on the health outcomes of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, or what I will call LGBT Missourians. The Missouri Foundation for Health in its 2012 Health Equity Report entitled Responding to LGBT Health Disparities acknowledged that discrimination, stigma, and a lack of public policy support by the state of Missouri has had a negative impact on the health of LGBT Missourians. Further evidence of LGBT health disparities can be found in a 2013 report issued by our very own Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services entitled The Burden of Chronic Diseases in Missouri, Progresses and Challenges, which specifically showed differences in healthcare outcomes for LGBT Missourians compared to the general population. These findings are a startling glimpse into the negative health outcomes that have come about due to discrimination. With this health data, LGBT health advocates have been working close with health and social service providers to really close this gap here in the state of Missouri. Having worked personally for the past several years in Missouri with medical providers, hospitals, and hospital systems, I can say without a doubt that we are in a new era of LGBT health protections here in the state of Missouri. To date, health advocates have worked with over 53 Missouri hospitals to incorporate over 125 LGBT welcoming policies. These hospital systems include SSM Health, our friends who are just here to testify, BJC Healthcare, Cox Health, St. Luke's in Kansas City, Children's Mercy in Kansas City, Fulton State Hospital, and even in my own very hometown, St. Genevieve Memorial Hospital, all of whom acknowledge that disparities do exist and found a need to protect LGBT patients from discrimination. I've experienced my own healthcare issues at the beginning of 2015. I can attest to the fear that arises in LGBT Missourians when they enter into the Missouri healthcare system. Having gone to my surgery with my loved one, all I could remember thinking about was how I would be treated and how and if the care I received would be the same as any other person. No Missourian should have to feel that way when receiving care. This body has the opportunity to change that by ensuring that hardworking LGBT Missourians are protected from discrimination. So I urge you on behalf of the health of LGBT Missourians to support SB 653. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Shaughnessy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else to testify in support?
Good afternoon, Senator. Ginger Steinmetz, representing the Attorney General's office. We would like to go support of Senate Bill 653 as we have since 2010.
Is there any questions from Ms. Steinmetz? Is there anyone else in favor?
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Phelps on behalf of Planned Parenthood Advocates for Missouri. We would like to go on record in full support of this bill.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you so much. Is there anyone else to testify in support of Senate Bill 653? Anybody in opposition to Senate Bill 653?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Members of the committee, my name is Brian Dunn. I represent the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I could go on record in opposition to the bill. Our position hasn't changed since last year, or since the Nardi case in 2007. So the discrimination standard has changed from the contributing standard to the motivating standard. We cannot support any more protected classes to the list of the MHRA. That's our position.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Meyer? Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in favor?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Ray McCarty, President of Associated Industries of Missouri, and as we have been historically, we also are against this bill for the same reason that you just heard. Establishing new classes of employees that may sue their employers is a problem, and that is our main problem, because we encourage our members to have policies that discourage discrimination at every turn. But we do not feel that setting up an additional protected class is something that would be good for the state of Missouri. Yeah.
Are there any questions for Mr. McCarty? Thank you for testimony. Anyone else in opposition?
I'm Deb Avon, Conservative for America, Missouri, in opposition of Senate 63. It sounds like the free market kind of takes care of things. Across Missouri, we're hearing that lots of companies have developed policies, cities have developed ordinances.
Is your mic on? I'm getting trouble here.
Thank you. So I'm a big advocate of free market in many things here. Capital seems like a foreign language for many policies. The free market really does work. And now that we see over the years, and we've had this bill over the years, we said this could happen, this could happen. But now we've seen some of the states where they have adopted this into their state policy. Individuals with deeply religious health views are experiencing difficulties with being sued by either by their people who wanted to have their services or whatever. It's there are always going to be differences, and as I said, the great thing about America is supposed to be equal before the law, and we really need to be equal before the law, and we can be equal before the law, but sometimes when the law and the government kind of becomes overbearing, it stirs up more trouble than it should. And I think we see over the years that things have happened more open in our society, and it really I can't understand as a business owner at one time and as a landlord at one time. I can't understand why a business owner or a landlord would discriminate against a person. They want somebody who will keep their property, pay their rent on time. A business owner wants an employee or a coworker to show up on time and work hard and be creative and be brilliant, or at least a hard worker. If a business owner or a property owner dismisses a relationship because of a sexual orientation, I don't understand that, but we just can't have it at the hand of the law, because in the states where it's been adopted, then big trouble under the legislation.
Are there any questions? Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 653?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee, for the record, Andrew Metzler from Missouri County Network. Respectfully, just want to go on record in opposition.
Questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else here to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 653? Is there anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, business before the committee. I'll take the motion for adjournment. Second. Wait. Say second. Second. For adjournment.